Have you ever noticed how easily a single email, a difficult conversation, or even a minor inconvenience can throw your entire day off balance? In a world that never stops moving, it often feels like our peace of mind is hanging by a thread, constantly tested, frequently interrupted, and just out of reach when we need it most. We scroll through feeds filled with curated perfection, rush through tasks without truly being present, and wonder why genuine calm feels so elusive. It's as if modern life is designed to keep us perpetually distracted, reactive, and disconnected from the very presence that could anchor us. And yet, what if that sense of unshakable calm wasn't something reserved for a select few, but a skill you could actively build day by day? Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled Rome in some of its most turbulent times, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That simple, profound truth is the heart of what we're exploring today. The idea that unshakable presence isn't a mysterious gift or an innate quality. It's a trainable capacity, rooted in ancient Stoic principles that have stood the test of time because they speak directly to the human experience, our struggles with control, our reactions to challenge, and our deep desire for inner stability. The Stoics didn't just philosophize about tranquility, they developed practical mental frameworks to cultivate it, even in the midst of chaos. In this video, we'll dive into the core mechanisms behind that unshakable presence, how you can distinguish between what you can and cannot control, how to pause between impulse and action, and how to reframe obstacles as opportunities. We'll explore timeless techniques like negative visualization, Amor Fati, the love of fate, and the practice of mindfulness Stoics called Prosoch. And most importantly, we'll translate these ideas into actionable steps you can start applying today, whether you're dealing with stress at work, uncertainty in relationships, or the general noise of daily life. This isn't about adding more to your to-do list. It's about changing how you move through the world with more clarity, less reactivity, and a grounded presence that no external circumstance can easily shake. The first step toward unshakable presence is recognizing a fundamental truth about control. This idea isn't a modern self-help concept. It's the very bedrock of Stoic philosophy, articulated most clearly by the former slave-turned-teacher, Epictetus. He opens his famous handbook, the Enchiridion, with a simple yet life-changing distinction. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions, essentially, our inner world of judgment and choice. Everything else, from our reputation and our wealth to the actions of other people and the weather, is not within our direct control. We intuitively know this, yet we constantly live as if it weren't true. We drain our mental energy and shatter our presence by agonizing over things we simply cannot command. Think about the last time you were stuck in unexpected traffic, white-knuckling the steering wheel while frustration boiled inside you. Your anger and anxiety did absolutely nothing to clear the road ahead. All it did was rob you of your peace in that moment, ensuring you arrived at your destination both late and emotionally drained. Or consider how we often react to criticism. We can't control what someone else says or thinks about us, but we have complete authority over how we interpret their words, whether we learn from them, and whether we allow them to define our self-worth. Every time we invest our emotional capital in these externals, we hand over the keys to our inner citadel. Epictetus reminds us, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle: some things are within our control and some things are not. This isn't a call to passivity, It's a call to profound focus. It directs all of our effort and attention to the one arena where we are truly sovereign, our own mind. By ceasing to fight battles we cannot win, we conserve an enormous amount of energy that can then be channeled into how we choose to respond. The driver in traffic can't control the congestion, but they can control whether they listen to an audiobook or fume in silence. They can't make the cars move faster, but they can use the time to practice patience. This shift in focus from the uncontrollable external event to your controllable internal response is the genesis of real presence. So bring this into your own life for a moment. Identify one recurring situation where you consistently find your peace disrupted because you're focusing on what you can't control. Is it your boss's mood, the outcome of a project, a family member's habits? Just acknowledging this pattern is a powerful act of training. It's the first repetition in building the mental muscle of unshakable presence, consciously choosing to pour your energy only into the things you can actually influence. How often do your first reactions dictate your entire day? That immediate flash of anger when someone cuts you off in traffic, the surge of anxiety from a critical email, the defensive bristle at a perceived slight. These automatic responses can hijack our minds and set the tone for hours, sometimes even derailing our entire sense of presence. The Stoics identified this very human tendency and developed a powerful countermeasure, a practice they called assent. This is the crucial mental discipline of creating a pause between the initial impression of an event and our full emotional endorsement of it. It's in that sliver of space, that momentary hesitation, where our true power to choose our response resides. Seneca, the great Stoic statesman and writer, beautifully captured this idea when he advised, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." He wasn't dismissing real pain, but rather pointing to the immense suffering we create for ourselves by immediately assenting to our first, often distorted, interpretation of events. That space between what happens and how we react is the birthplace of cognitive detachment. It's not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about gaining just enough distance from the initial emotional wave to prevent it from sweeping you away. You learn to observe the feeling without immediately becoming the feeling. Consider a common workplace scenario. A colleague presents an idea in a meeting that directly critiques a project you've been pouring your heart into. Your first impression might be one of personal attack, triggering a flush of embarrassment and a defensive urge to fire back a rebuttal. Without cognitive detachment, you might assent to that impression immediately, leading to a sharp, regrettable comment that escalates tension and damages the collaboration. But if you've trained yourself to insert that pause, something different happens. You notice the heat rising in your face, you acknowledge the sting of the criticism, but you don't let it dictate your actions. In that space, you can reassess. Perhaps the feedback, though poorly delivered, contains a valid point. Maybe your colleague is just passionate, not malicious. This detachment allows you to respond with clarity and purpose, perhaps by asking a clarifying question or acknowledging their perspective before offering your own, transforming a potential conflict into a productive dialogue. This practice turns down the volume on life's chaos and allows you to hear your own reasoned voice. It's the difference between being a puppet whose strings are pulled by every external event and being the puppeteer who decides which strings to engage. Think back on your own week. Can you identify a moment where an immediate, heated reaction led to an outcome you later regretted? Now, reimagine that same scenario with the simple insertion of a breath, a moment of pause. How might your words, your actions, and ultimately the result have been different? That power to change the narrative is always available, and it starts with training yourself to claim that tiny, transformative space before you assent. Stoics believed that misaligned desires are the root of inner turmoil. This isn't just a philosophical opinion, it's a practical diagnosis of why we so often feel unsettled, anxious, or perpetually dissatisfied. Epictetus framed this as one of his three core disciplines, the discipline of desire and aversion. In its simplest terms, it means training yourself to want only those things that are truly good for you and within your control, and to avoid only those things that are truly bad for you and within your control. The chaos in our minds begins when we desire external outcomes like praise, promotion, or possessions, as if they were the ultimate source of our happiness, and when we feverishly avoid external circumstances like criticism, failure, or discomfort, as if they were genuine evils. Marcus Aurelius offered a clear guide for this realignment when he wrote, "Let your desire be for the common good, and your aversion be for what is contrary to nature, but only lightly and with reservation and without force." To want what is natural and necessary isn't about embracing austerity for its own sake. It's about recognizing that our deepest well-being comes from virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, qualities that are entirely up to us to cultivate. We suffer when we tie our happiness to things that can be taken away in an instant, things that were never truly ours to begin with. Consider the modern pursuit of status or social approval. We spend countless hours crafting the perfect online image, worrying about how many people like our posts, or feeling a pang of envy when someone else gets the recognition we crave. This desire for external validation is a perfect example of a misaligned desire. You cannot control who likes you, who approves of your work, or how others perceive your status. The more you desire it, the more you hand your inner stability over to the unpredictable opinions of others. The Stoic alternative isn't to become a hermit, but to shift the desire inward. Instead of desiring applause, desire to do excellent work. Instead of craving likes, crave integrity in your actions. The goal becomes the quality of your effort, not the reception it receives. This realignment is incredibly freeing. Your sense of worth becomes self-generated, no longer subject to the fickle winds of external judgment. This discipline applies equally to our aversions. We often treat minor inconveniences, delays, or criticisms as catastrophes to be avoided at all costs. We build our lives around comfort, then wonder why we feel so fragile when hardship inevitably arrives. The Stoic practice is to reassess what we're so desperately trying to avoid. Is this discomfort truly evil, or is it merely unpleasant? Often, the things we avoid, difficult conversations, challenging projects, physical exertion, are the very things that, when faced, build our strength and character. By learning to reserve our aversion only for true moral failings like acting dishonestly or cruelly, we stop wasting energy running from shadows. Take a moment to look at your own life through this lens. What is one desire you currently hold that, upon examination, might be misaligned? Is it the desire for a specific outcome at work that depends on other people's decisions? The desire for a relationship to unfold exactly as you envision it? Or perhaps it's an aversion, maybe you're avoiding a necessary conversation or a personal challenge because you fear the temporary discomfort it might bring. The practice is to consciously reframe that desire. Can you shift from wanting the specific outcome to wanting to act with virtue regardless of the outcome? Can you transform your aversion to discomfort into an aversion to cowardice? This mental shift is how you start building an inner stability that remains unshaken by the external world's constant fluctuations. What if facing your fears head-on could actually make you calmer? It sounds counterintuitive, but this is precisely the power of the Stoic practice known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Far from being a pessimistic exercise, it's a profound tool for building resilience and diminishing the anxiety that so often clouds our presence. The Stoics understood that much of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the shock and fear we experience when they catch us unprepared. By mentally rehearsing potential challenges, setbacks, and losses, we rob them of their power to surprise us. We move from being passive victims of circumstance to active participants in our own emotional preparedness. Seneca, who frequently wrote about navigating uncertainty and loss, advised, "Rehearse them in your mind: exile, torture, war, shipwreck." His point wasn't to dwell on misery, but to create a fundamental shift in perspective. He continues, "All the terms of our human lot should be before our eyes. By consciously considering the possibility of adversity, we accomplish two crucial things. First, we inoculate ourselves against the paralyzing shock of misfortune. When a difficulty arises, instead of being blindsided, we can meet it with a sense of recognition. This is one of the things I contemplated. This is what it feels like." That simple shift from unknown terror to familiar territory is incredibly grounding. Second, and perhaps more importantly, this practice dramatically heightens our appreciation for the present moment. By regularly reflecting on the potential loss of our health, our relationships, or our comforts, we stop taking them for granted. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. Your morning coffee, a conversation with a friend, the comfort of your home. These are no longer trivial background details, but vivid gifts that you are fully present to enjoy. Let's make this practical. Imagine you have to have a difficult conversation with your manager about your workload. The anxiety leading up to it can be crippling. Your mind spins through worst-case scenarios. They'll get angry, they'll think you're incompetent, you might even be fired. This is where negative visualization becomes a strategic tool. Instead of letting those fears run wild in the background of your mind, you bring them into the light and examine them deliberately. Sit down and mentally walk through the very worst realistic outcome. What if the conversation goes poorly? What if they are dismissive? What specific, virtuous response would that require from you? Perhaps it would require the courage to stand your ground calmly, or the wisdom to understand their perspective, or the justice to advocate fairly for yourself and your team. By premeditating the obstacle, you are no longer rehearsing fear, you are rehearsing your values, you are preparing your character. When you walk into that room, you do so with a plan for your own conduct, regardless of theirs. The event itself may still be challenging, but your inner state is one of preparedness, not panic. This technique transforms the unknown into the manageable. It's like a fire drill for the mind. We don't conduct fire drills because we expect the building to burn down. We do them so that if the alarm ever sounds, we don't freeze in terror. We know the exits, we understand the procedure, and we can act with clarity and purpose. Premeditatio malorum is your mental fire drill. It ensures that when life's alarms go off, your response is measured and virtuous, not frantic and fearful. So, bring this into your own life right now. What is one challenge you've been avoiding or a future event that's causing you low-grade anxiety? It could be a financial concern, a health worry, or a personal goal you're afraid to pursue for fear of failing. Close your eyes for just a moment and give yourself permission to fully envision it going wrong. Don't shy away from the details. Then ask yourself, if this happened, what would my Stoic response be? How could I use this obstacle to practice courage, patience, or wisdom? How would I ensure that my character remains intact? This isn't inviting trouble. It's building an inner fortress so strong that trouble, when it comes, finds you already at peace and ready to respond. What if every setback was actually meant for your growth? This isn't just wishful thinking or naive optimism. It's the radical Stoic principle of Amor Fati. a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. While the philosopher Nietzsche later popularized this idea, its roots run deep in Stoic philosophy, representing the ultimate expression of acceptance and resilience. It's the conscious decision to not merely endure what happens to you, but to embrace it, to welcome it, and to see it as an essential thread in the fabric of your life. This mindset transforms obstacles from things that happen to you into things that happen for you, forging a presence that is not just unshakable, but actively engaged with every twist and turn of life. Marcus Aurelius, guiding himself through immense personal and political turmoil, wrote in his Meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is the essence of Amor Fati. He isn't suggesting that every event is inherently good, but that a well-trained mind can use every event as fuel for growth. The obstacle itself becomes the way forward. This practice moves beyond simple acceptance, which can sometimes feel passive or resigned, into a dynamic, affirmative stance. It's the difference between sighing and saying, "Well, I guess I have to deal with this," and leaning in with curiosity to ask, "What can this situation teach me? How can this difficulty strengthen me?" Consider a historical example that embodies this spirit, the story of Thomas Edison. When his laboratory, containing years of priceless research and prototypes, burned to the ground in a devastating fire, his response was not one of despair. He reportedly told his son, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." In that moment, he exemplified Amor Fati. He could have focused on the immense loss, the financial ruin, the years of work gone in an instant, all things outside his control. Instead, he immediately embraced the reality and searched for the opportunity within the ashes. The disaster became a catalyst for a fresh start, free from the weight of past approaches. This reframe didn't change the event, but it completely changed his experience of it, allowing him to move forward with resilience and even gratitude rather than being crippled by grief. This principle is incredibly applicable to our daily lives. Perhaps you didn't get the job you interviewed for. The standard reaction is disappointment, maybe even self-doubt. Amor Fati asks you to reframe it. What if not getting that job was necessary? What if it saves you from a toxic work environment you couldn't see? What if it forces you to develop new skills that lead to a far better opportunity down the line? Or on a smaller scale, a flat tire on a rainy day is a miserable inconvenience, but embracing it might mean accepting the forced pause, finding a moment of quiet in the car while you wait for help, or appreciating the kindness of a stranger who stops to offer assistance. The event remains the same, a flat tire, but your relationship to it transforms it from a ruinous event into a neutral or even beneficial one. The power of this practice lies in its ability to dissolve resistance. So much of our inner turmoil comes from arguing with reality, from wishing the present moment were different than it is. Amor Fati ends that argument. It aligns your will with the unfolding of events, not out of weakness, but out of a profound understanding that your power lies not in controlling every event, but in commanding your interpretation of and response to them. This is how you build a presence that doesn't flinch in the face of adversity, but meets it with open arms, ready to find the hidden gift. Think of a recent difficulty you faced, a missed opportunity, a personal conflict, a plan that fell apart. Now challenge yourself to reframe it through the lens of Amor Fati. Can you find one way in which that setback might have served you? Perhaps it taught you patience, revealed a hidden strength, or simply redirected you to a better path. Learning to love your fate in all its forms is the ultimate practice in forging an inner strength that thrives on reality itself. True presence isn't accidental, it's a habit of vigilant self-awareness. While many modern mindfulness practices focus on calming the mind or reducing stress, the Stoics developed a specific, purposeful form of attention called prosoche. This isn't about emptying your thoughts or achieving a state of passive relaxation. Prosoch is an active, continuous vigilance over your inner world, a constant watching of your judgments, your impulses, and your actions to ensure they are aligned with reason and virtue. It's the practice of being the guardian of your own mind, moment by moment, ensuring that nothing enters or exits without your conscious approval. This is the mechanics of unshakable presence in real time. Epictetus, who understood better than most the chaos that an untrained mind can create, placed this practice above all others. He taught his students, pay attention to your impressions. Watch over them, for it is no small matter you are guarding. He wasn't talking about guarding a treasure chest of gold. He was referring to guarding the very core of your character, your peace, and your freedom. Your impressions, those initial reactions to events, are the gatekeepers of your emotional state. Prosoch is the discipline of standing at that gate, questioning every visitor before you allow it to influence your actions. Is this impression accurate? Is it helpful? Is it based on virtue or on a reflexive fear or desire? This constant, gentle auditing of your inner dialogue is what prevents you from being swept away by the first wave of emotion. The beautiful practicality of prosoche is that it turns the most mundane moments of your day into a training ground for profound presence. You don't need a meditation retreat or a silent cabin in the woods. Your daily commute, your morning coffee, washing the dishes, or even walking to a meeting, these are all perfect opportunities. The goal is to bring your full attention to the activity itself, not as a means to an end, but as the practice itself. For instance, when you drink that coffee, don't just gulp it down while scrolling through your phone. Instead, make that act the entire focus. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands. Notice the aroma, taste the bitterness and the slight sweetness. When your mind inevitably wanders to your to-do list or a worry from yesterday, gently guide it back to the sensory experience of drinking. This isn't about the coffee, it's about repeatedly exercising your ability to choose where your attention resides. You are building the mental muscle that will allow you to remain present during a stressful conversation or a high-stakes presentation because you've been training it in the calm moments. This practice transforms routine from a series of automatic, unconscious actions into a deliberate and meaningful ritual. Each time you consciously pull your attention back from distraction and anchor it in the present task, you are not just making that moment richer, you are fundamentally rewiring your brain for greater focus and emotional regulation. You are learning to dwell in the current moment instead of being kidnapped by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. The Stoic aim is to live every minute intentionally, making choices that reflect your values rather than simply reacting to external stimuli on autopilot. To start weaving this into the fabric of your day, choose just one routine activity you perform almost every day without thinking. It could be brushing your teeth, taking a shower, driving to work, or eating a meal. For the next week, make that activity your prosoche practice. Commit to performing it with your complete and undivided attention. When you brush your teeth, focus on the sensation of the bristles, the taste of the toothpaste, the motion of your hand. Each time your mind drifts, as it naturally will, note the distraction without judgment and simply return to the act of brushing. This simple, repeated exercise is how you begin to build the foundational skill of Stoic mindfulness, a vigilant, gentle awareness that allows you to remain the author of your actions, no matter what the day brings. How much of your stress comes not from events, but from your judgments about them? This is perhaps one of the most liberating and practical insights Stoicism offers. The core idea is that events themselves are neutral. They are just things that happen. It is our internal assessment, our instant labeling of an event as good or bad, catastrophic or wonderful, that triggers our emotional whirlwind. Our judgments are the lens through which we view the world, and if that lens is distorted by fear, ego, or unrealistic expectations, then our entire experience of reality becomes distorted and stressful. The Stoic practice of rational judgment is the act of cleaning that lens, of consciously questioning our automatic interpretations to reclaim a sense of calm and clarity. Marcus Aurelius put it with stunning simplicity: if you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. Let that sink in. The power to wipe out the disturbance lies not in changing the external event, which is often impossible, but in revising your internal ruling about it. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending something doesn't hurt. It's about investigating the story we're telling ourselves to see if it's actually true. Is this situation truly a disaster, or have I simply decided that it is? Our judgment is the narrator of our life story, and sometimes that narrator is unreliable, prone to exaggeration and fear-mongering. Consider a universal modern stressor, a delayed flight. The event itself is neutral, a plane is not at the gate. One person's judgment might instantly label this a catastrophe. Their mind spirals: this ruins everything, I'll miss my connection, my important meeting is doomed, this airline is terrible, this always happens to me. This judgment triggers a cascade of stress hormones, anger, and frustration. They spend hours at the gate miserable, complaining, and radiating negativity, their entire presence consumed by a story of disaster. Another person experiences the exact same event, the same delay, the same missed connection, but their judgment is different. They think, this is outside my control. It's an inconvenience, not a crisis. This gives me unexpected time to read that book I brought, to call a friend I've been meaning to catch up with, or simply to sit and watch the world go by. Their internal narrative is calm and pragmatic. The external event is identical, but the internal experience, and therefore their presence and peace, is worlds apart. The difference is entirely a matter of judgment. This practice of rational reassessment is like being your own internal defense attorney, cross-examining the initial, emotional prosecution that your mind launches against reality. When you feel that surge of stress, you learn to pause and ask, what is the bare fact of what happened, stripped of all my emotional commentary? What is the most reasonable and constructive way to view this? Is there another perspective that is equally true but less damaging to my peace? For instance, if someone speaks to you in a curt tone, your initial judgment might be, they are disrespecting me, which leads to anger. But upon rational examination, other, more likely judgments emerge. They might be having a terrible day, or they might be stressed about a deadline and not even aware of their tone, or even, their tone is their business, my reaction is mine. By choosing the more rational and charitable judgment, you disarm the trigger and maintain your equilibrium. This week, bring this powerful tool into your own life. Identify one specific situation where you consistently feel a negative emotional charge. Perhaps it's your partner leaving dishes in the sink, your boss sending an email after hours, or getting stuck in traffic. Now consciously try on a different judgment. Instead of they are being inconsiderate, could it be they are absent-minded and it has nothing to do with me? Instead of my boss is imposing on my time, could it be they are just dealing with their own workload and seeing me for information? The event hasn't changed, but by changing the judgment you hold about it, you remove its power to disturb your inner peace and reclaim your unshakable presence. Stoics trained their resilience by seeking out discomfort voluntarily. This might sound counterintuitive in a culture that relentlessly pursues comfort and convenience, but the ancient philosophers understood a profound truth. The The surest way to build a mind that remains calm in the face of involuntary hardship is to willingly invite small, manageable doses of it into your life. It's a form of mental and emotional inoculation. By voluntarily stepping into the cold, the hungry, or the difficult, you systematically desensitize yourself to the fear and aversion these states typically trigger. You prove to yourself through direct experience that you can not only endure discomfort but emerge from it stronger and more confident. This practice fortifies your inner citadel, ensuring that when life inevitably throws an unexpected challenge your way, you meet it not with panic, but with the practiced calm of someone who has been there before. Seneca, a man of immense wealth who could have indulged in every luxury, was a strong advocate for this very practice. He advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" His point wasn't that wealth is evil, but that dependence on it is a profound weakness. By periodically practicing poverty, by consciously choosing to live with less, you accomplish two crucial things. First, you shatter the illusion that your happiness is dependent on external comforts. You discover a deep well of resilience within yourself that exists regardless of your circumstances. Second, you cultivate a powerful gratitude for the comforts you do have. That warm bed and satisfying meal are no longer things you take for granted. They become appreciated gifts, making your ordinary life feel rich and abundant. This voluntary discomfort isn't about self-punishment, it's about self-liberation. It's the training that makes you immune to the whims of fortune. The modern applications of this are simple, accessible, and incredibly effective. You don't need to sleep on a stone floor or give away all your possessions. The practice is about intentionally choosing a slightly harder path in small, daily ways. It could be taking a cold shower for the final 60 seconds of your morning routine. That initial shock of cold is a masterclass in controlling your reaction. You learn to steady your breath and accept the sensation rather than frantically reaching for the knob. It could be walking somewhere instead of driving, or choosing to skip a second helping of dessert, not for dieting reasons, but for the practice of saying no to a desire. It might be leaving your phone at home during a walk to practice being alone with your thoughts, or volunteering for a difficult task at work that you'd normally avoid. Each of these small acts is a repetition in the gym of your mind, building the muscle of resilience one conscious choice at a time. The true power of this exercise lies in its direct translation to involuntary hardships. The person who voluntarily embraces the cold shower is building the same mental muscles needed to endure a broken heater in the dead of winter. The person who practices skipping a luxury is building the resilience needed to face a financial setback without crumbling. By making friends with discomfort on your own terms, you drain it of its power to intimidate you when it arrives on life's terms. You transform it from a feared enemy into a familiar and even welcome training partner. This week, make this philosophy practical. Choose one small, voluntary discomfort to integrate into your routine. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Perhaps it's a digital detox for one evening, a cold plunge at the end of your shower, or a meal of simple, plain food. The specific act matters less than the intention behind it. The conscious decision to seek out a little friction to prove to yourself that you are far stronger than your desire for comfort would have you believe. What if your personal struggles felt smaller when seen as part of something vast? This is the essence of the Stoic concept of sympatheia, a profound sense of cosmic interconnectedness that was central to their worldview. It's the understanding that you are not an isolated individual battling against the world, but an integral thread in a vast living tapestry. Your joys, your sorrows, your successes, and your failures are all part of a grand, universal process. When you internalize this perspective, the weight of your personal concerns begins to lighten. The sting of a personal insult, the anxiety over a missed promotion, the frustration of a daily inconvenience, these don't disappear, but they are contextualized. They are no longer world-ending catastrophes happening to you alone, but rather small, passing events in the infinite sweep of time and space. This shift doesn't diminish your experience, it liberates you from the suffocating grip of your own ego. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this idea to ground himself amidst the immense pressures of leading an empire. He wrote, "What brings you joy? To feel concern for the common good. And so we are born for fellowship, and he who cuts himself off is like a quartered animal, abandoning the whole." For the Stoics, this interconnectedness wasn't a vague spiritual notion. It was a rational observation of nature. Just as an arm is part of a body, an individual is part of humanity, which is part of the cosmos. To see yourself as separate is to fundamentally misunderstand your place in the order of things. This practice of sympatheia is the ultimate antidote to self-importance. It gently mocks our tendency to inflate our problems to cosmic significance, reminding us that we are a brief, beautiful flash in a story that began long before us and will continue long after. You can experience the calming power of this perspective in very tangible ways. Stand outside on a clear night and look up at the stars. Really look at them. Consider the incomprehensible distances, the billions of years their light has traveled to reach your eyes. In that moment, your argument with a coworker or your worry about a bill doesn't vanish, but it is placed against a backdrop so immense that its relative size becomes clear. It's not nothing, but it's not everything either. Another powerful method is to visit a historical site or even an old cemetery. Read the names on the headstones from a century or two ago. Each one represents a life as vivid and complex as your own, filled with their own loves, losses, triumphs, and fears. Their urgent concerns, which felt so all-consuming in their moment, have now passed into history. This isn't a depressing thought, it's a humbling and strangely comforting one. It connects you to the endless human chain, reminding you that your current struggle is a universal human experience, not a unique curse. You are not alone in your suffering, you are participating in the shared human condition. To integrate this into your daily practice, take a current worry that feels heavy and overwhelming. It could be a financial pressure, a relationship strain, or a professional uncertainty. Now, consciously try to view it from three progressively wider perspectives. First, from a community perspective, how would a wise elder in your community view this problem? Would they see it as a temporary challenge or a permanent state? Second, from a historical perspective, how will this problem look in 5 years? Or 50? Will it even be a memory worth recalling? And finally, from a cosmic perspective, if you could view your life from a point far out in space, how significant would this single concern appear against the swirling galaxies and the silent, majestic dance of planets? This exercise isn't about dismissing your feelings, but about diluting their intensity by adding the solvent of a broader context. It trains you to hold your concerns more lightly, fostering a calm that comes from knowing you are part of something magnificent and eternal, far greater than any single problem you will ever face. In a world of constant noise, silence is where presence grows. We are surrounded by a relentless barrage of notifications, opinions, entertainment, and demands, a digital cacophony that pulls our attention in a dozen directions at once. The Stoics recognized this challenge centuries ago, though their distractions were of a different kind: the chaos of the Roman Forum, the pressures of public life, the endless petitions and social obligations. Their solution was not to complain about the noise, but to deliberately cultivate its opposite. They understood that solitude and stillness were not luxuries or escapes from responsibility, but essential disciplines for reclaiming the clarity and focus that define an unshakable presence. This practice of withdrawing into quiet was a way to reconnect with their inner citadel, to hear the voice of reason above the din of the external world. Seneca, in his moral letters to Lucilius, offers timeless advice on this very need. He writes, "You must withdraw into yourself as much as you can. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving." The process is mutual, for people learn while they teach. Notice that he doesn't say to withdraw from the world permanently. His call for solitude is a temporary and strategic retreat, a way to strengthen the mind so that one can return to society and engage with it more virtuously and effectively. The goal of Stoic silence is not misanthropy, it is self-possession. It is in these quiet moments, free from the influence and judgments of others, that we can truly audit our own thoughts, examine our impulses, and ensure our desires are aligned with virtue and not with the crowd's applause. This is how we prevent the world from writing its agenda on our souls. The modern equivalent of this ancient practice is a conscious digital detox or the intentional scheduling of quiet reflection. It's about creating a small sanctuary of silence in your day, a buffer zone between the noise of the world and the quiet authority of your own mind. This could be as simple as committing to the first 30 minutes of your day without looking at your phone, allowing your mind to wake up and orient itself according to your own priorities, rather than being immediately hijacked by the urgent demands of others. It could be taking a walk without headphones, giving your mind the space to wander, process, and settle instead of filling every spare second with another input. Even sitting in your car for a few minutes after arriving home, taking a series of deep breaths to transition from the external world of work to the internal world of your family, can serve as a powerful ritual of stillness. These practices are not about doing nothing, they are about doing the most important thing, fortifying your inner self. The profound benefit of this discipline is that it creates a reservoir of calm that you can draw from throughout your day. When a crisis erupts at work or a difficult conversation arises, you are not starting from a place of reactive frazzlement. You have a baseline of stillness to return to because you have been actively cultivating it. Your responses become more measured, your listening becomes more attentive, and your presence becomes more grounded because you are not constantly overstimulated. You have given your nervous system a chance to reset, and in doing so, you regain control over your attention, which is the very essence of your freedom. To put this into practice today, I encourage you to schedule just 5 minutes of absolute silence. It doesn't require a special meditation cushion or a perfect environment. Simply find a quiet corner, set a timer, and just be with yourself. Don't try to force your mind to be empty, just let it be without feeding it any new input. Observe your thoughts without judgment and gently guide your attention back to your breath if you find it wandering. This small daily investment in silence is a direct deposit into your account of unshakable presence. How would your worries look from space? It's a strange question, but it points directly to one of the most powerful perspective-shifting tools in Stoic practice, the view from above. This is a deliberate mental exercise where you consciously zoom out from your immediate, ground-level problems and view your life from a progressively higher and wider vantage point. You start by visualizing your street, then your city, then your country, then the planet Earth hanging in the vast, silent blackness of space. The goal is to see your life and its concerns as a tiny, fleeting part of an incomprehensibly vast and ancient cosmos. This isn't about dismissing your problems as meaningless. It's about contextualizing them, draining them of their overwhelming intensity, and restoring a sense of proportion to your mind. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this technique, using it to ground himself amidst the immense pressures of ruling the Roman Empire. He would write reminders to himself like, "Keep always before your eyes the swiftness with which all that exists and is coming into being is swept past us and carried away." For substance is like a river's unending flow, its activities continually changing. He wasn't being morbid, he was engaging in a profound act of cognitive therapy. By constantly reflecting on the scale of the universe and the brevity of a human life, he prevented himself from inflating daily irritations, political squabbles, or personal slights into world-ending catastrophes. He saw his own reign, for all its power and glory, as a brief whisper in the grand story of time, and this humility was the source of his incredible steadiness. Let's make this practical. Imagine you've had an objectively stressful day at work. A project you've been managing hits an unexpected snag. A colleague takes credit for your idea in a meeting, and your boss sends you a terse email questioning your progress. By 5 p.m., you're simmering with frustration and anxiety, your mind racing with defensive arguments and worries about your reputation. This is the perfect moment to apply the view from above. Close your eyes for just 60 seconds and begin the visualization. See yourself sitting at your desk in your office building. Now pull the camera back in your mind's eye. See the building itself, then the block it's on, then the entire city. See the countless other buildings, each containing thousands of people having their own equally vivid and complex days, filled with their own triumphs and frustrations. Keep pulling back. See the country, then the continent, then the whole beautiful blue and white marble of Earth spinning in the void. From here, can you even see your office building? Can you see the email on your screen, the snag in your project? The entire history of human civilization is just a thin layer on the surface of this planet. Your current problem, which felt so all-consuming just moments ago, is now a microscopic event in a cosmic story billions of years old. This doesn't make your problem disappear, but it does reveal its true size. It is a difficulty, not a disaster. It is a single scene in a very long play. This perspective doesn't prevent you from addressing the issue. It allows you to address it from a place of calm reason rather than panicked emotion. This week, I want you to try this for yourself. Identify one concern that's currently weighing on your mind. It might be a financial worry, a relationship tension, or a fear about the future. Find a quiet moment, close your eyes, and take yourself on that mental journey. See your concern from the ceiling of your room, then from the sky above your home, then from the edge of the atmosphere, and finally from the quiet perspective of the stars. How does its shape change? What other, more permanent things come into focus? Your health, your values, the people you love. The view from above is a tool for recalibration, a way to shrink your anxieties back down to their actual size so you can engage with them wisely without the distortion of fear. Gratitude isn't just positive thinking, it's a Stoic tool for presence. In a philosophy often associated with stern self-discipline and resilience, the active practice of thankfulness might seem out of place, but for the Stoics, it was a fundamental exercise in reorienting our attention toward what is good, abundant, and most importantly, within our control. While the world outside us is unpredictable and often chaotic, our capacity to appreciate what we already possess remains a steadfast internal resource. This isn't about ignoring life's difficulties or slapping a cheerful veneer over genuine pain. It is the deliberate act of countering our mind's innate negativity bias, its tendency to focus on what's missing, what's wrong, or what could be lost by systematically noting what is already here, what is working, and what is sustaining us in this very moment. This practice grounds us firmly in the present reality, effectively inoculating us against the persistent itch of dissatisfaction that so often pulls us out of the now and into an anxious future or a regretful past. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and understood profound loss, directly linked gratitude to happiness. He taught that happiness does not come from acquiring more, but from wanting less and appreciating more of what you already have. He said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This rejoicing is not a passive feeling, it is an active verb. It is a conscious choice to dwell on sufficiency rather than lack. For the Stoic, this is a rational practice. Why would you allow your mind to be tormented by desires for things you do not have, when you could just as easily direct it toward a clear-eyed appreciation for the things you do possess? This shift in focus is a reclaiming of power. It moves your center of gravity from external, uncontrollable objects of desire to the internal, completely controllable act of appreciation. The power of this practice becomes vividly clear when we apply it to the most ordinary parts of our day. Consider a modern daily gratitude journal, but with a distinctly Stoic twist. Instead of just listing generic things you're thankful for, focus your entries specifically on things that are simple, readily available, and within your sphere of control. This precision matters. You are not expressing gratitude for a potential promotion that depends on your boss's decision, or for the weather to be nice tomorrow. Those are externals. You are training yourself to be grateful for the capacity of your own body, for the functioning of your mind, for the warmth of the sun on your skin, for the clean water that comes from your tap, for the ability to read and learn. You might be grateful for the simple fact that you had enough to eat today, or for the comfort of your bed, or for a moment of genuine laughter with a friend. These are not small things, they are the foundational elements of a good life, and they are almost always available for our appreciation if we simply pause to notice them. This practice systematically rewires your perception. The person stuck in traffic who practices gratitude might notice and appreciate the fact that they have a car that provides shelter from the rain, the podcast they are listening to that expands their mind, or even the simple functioning of their lungs as they take a deep, calming breath. Their circumstance hasn't changed, the traffic jam is still there, but their experience of it is transformed from one of lack and frustration to one of presence and sufficiency. They are no longer focusing on what they lack, a clear road, but on what they have: shelter, entertainment, breath. This is how gratitude builds an unshakable presence. It tethers you to the abundant reality of the present moment, making it much harder for external circumstances to hijack your peace. So let's bring this into sharp focus right now. What are 3 things you likely take for granted every single day that you can, in this moment, choose to be genuinely grateful for? Perhaps it's the reliability of your heartbeat, a function you never have to consciously command. Maybe it's the roof over your head that protected you from the elements last night. It could be the easy access to knowledge you have through the device you're using right now. Identify them, say them to yourself, and really feel the weight of that appreciation. This isn't a hollow exercise in positivity. It is an active training session for your mind, strengthening its ability to find footing on the solid ground of the present, no matter how turbulent the winds around you may blow. Freedom from suffering comes from loosening our grip on results. This is the heart of Stoic equanimity, a calm, steady composure that isn't rocked by success or failure, praise or criticism. It's the understanding that while we can control our actions, our efforts, and our intentions, we ultimately have no command over the final outcome. The Stoics believed that true peace is found not in achieving specific external goals, but in the quality of the effort itself, in acting with virtue and integrity regardless of what happens afterward. When we tie our happiness and self-worth to a particular result, a promotion, a certain level of income, a specific person's approval, we hand over the keys to our inner stability to forces outside our control. We set ourselves up for a roller coaster of emotion, soaring with hope when things seem to go our way and plunging into despair when they don't. Non-attachment is the practice of stepping off that roller coaster and planting your feet on the solid ground of your own virtuous effort. Epictetus, who focused intensely on the distinction between what is and isn't ours, gave perhaps the perfect metaphor for this practice. He said, "Remember that you are an actor in a play, which is as the playwright wants it to be. If short, then short. If long, then long." If he wants you to act a poor man, a cripple, a public official, or a private person, see that you act it with skill. For this is your job, to act well the part you are given, but choosing it belongs to another. Your role is to pour your entire being into performing your part with excellence, courage, and wisdom. The casting, the length of the run, and the audience's reaction are the domain of the director, of fate, of other people, of circumstances beyond your command. To crave the applause is to misunderstand your purpose. Your job is the acting, not the acclaim. Your fulfillment must come from the authenticity of your performance, not from the volume of the cheers or the silence that may follow. Consider a modern example, pursuing a career goal, perhaps a promotion to a leadership position. The attached approach involves fixating on the title, the salary increase, and the status. Your mind constantly visualizes the corner office, imagines telling friends and family the good news, and measures your worth against this future achievement. Every step of the process is colored by this attachment. A setback feels like a personal failure. A colleague's progress feels like a threat. Your peace is contingent, hanging on a decision made by others in a conference room. Now contrast this with the Stoic approach of non-attachment. You still desire the promotion. Stoicism isn't about apathy, but your primary desire shifts. Your main goal becomes to act like a leader right now in your current role. You focus on the virtues within your control, the diligence to do your best work, the courage to voice good ideas, the justice to support your teammates, and the wisdom to provide valuable insights. You prepare for the interview thoroughly because that is your duty, your role to play well, but you release any death grip on the outcome. If you get the promotion, you will welcome it and continue to act with virtue. If you don't, you haven't failed. Your success was in the effort itself, in the character you displayed throughout the process. The outcome is merely information. It doesn't define you. This shift transforms the entire experience from a stressful, high-stakes gamble into a meaningful practice in self-development. This philosophy applies to every corner of our lives, from our creative pursuits to our personal relationships. The writer who is attached to a book becoming a bestseller will be crippled by anxiety and may never write a sincere word. The writer focused on the virtue of expressing truth beautifully will find joy in the daily act of writing itself. The parent attached to their child getting into a specific college may create a dynamic of pressure and resentment. The parent focused on the virtues of nurturing, guiding, and loving their child regardless of outcomes fosters a relationship built on unconditional support. The practice of non-attachment is the ultimate act of focusing your energy where it has real power, on your own choices and actions in the present moment. To begin integrating this into your own life, take a clear-eyed look at your current ambitions and concerns. Where have you tied your sense of peace to a specific result? Identify one attachment you can consciously work to loosen this week. It might be attachment to a particular sales target, to your children behaving a certain way at a family event, or to a friend responding exactly as you hope to a difficult conversation. Acknowledge the desired outcome, then make a deliberate mental shift. Reaffirm that your true goal is not that specific result, but to act with the best possible character in pursuit of it. Your success will then be immediate and internal, measured by your virtue rather than by the unpredictable and often fickle external world. How did you live today? Stoics ended each day with a purposeful review, treating this not as a passive recap but as an active training session for the soul. This practice of evening reflection, often called a philosophical diary or a daily examen, was their tool for converting raw experience into lasting wisdom. It's the mechanism that transforms the theoretical principles we've been discussing into lived reality, closing the loop between learning and doing. Seneca, one of the most dedicated practitioners of this art, wrote extensively about it in his letters to his friend Lucilius. He described his own nightly ritual, saying, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." For Seneca, this wasn't an exercise in self-criticism. It was an act of rigorous, honest self-auditing, a way to hold himself accountable to his own philosophical standards and to ensure that his progress toward virtue was deliberate and consistent. The power of this practice lies in its structure and its consistency. It's a deliberate pause at the day's end to process everything that happened, to sift through the events and your reactions to them, separating the gold of wisdom from the gravel of distraction. Without this pause, our days simply blur into one another. We repeat the same mistakes, miss the same lessons, and operate on autopilot, never truly learning from our experiences. The evening reflection is the antidote to this unconscious living. It's where you take stock of your actions through the lens of your values, asking not, "What did I achieve today?" but "How did I live today? Did my actions align with my principles? Where did I succeed in practicing virtue, and where did I allow my character to be compromised?" A simple yet profoundly effective way to implement this is with a three-question framework that anyone can use. First, ask yourself, what did I do well today? This is not about inflating your ego. It's about recognizing and reinforcing virtuous behavior. Perhaps you maintained your composure during a frustrating delay, you offered kindness to someone who was struggling, or you chose a healthy meal over an easy indulgence. Acknowledging these small victories makes it more likely you'll repeat them. The second question is, what could I have improved? Approach this with the gentle curiosity of a scientist studying data, not the harsh judgment of a critic. Here, you might note that you snapped impatiently at a family member, procrastinated on an important task, or spent too much mental energy worrying about an opinion you cannot control. The goal isn't to dwell on failure, but to identify a specific, concrete area for growth tomorrow. Finally, ask, what did I learn? This question transforms every experience, good or bad, into a lesson. Maybe you learned that a certain environment triggers your anxiety, that a particular morning routine sets you up for a focused day, or that a simple act of gratitude instantly lifted your mood. This final question ensures that no day, no matter how challenging or ordinary, is ever wasted. To make this tangible, imagine your day included a difficult work presentation. During your evening reflection, you might note that you did well by preparing thoroughly and speaking clearly. That's your victory. For improvement, you might observe that you felt a surge of defensive anger when a colleague questioned your data, and you responded with a slightly sharp tone instead of patient clarity. And the lesson, you learned that your attachment to being perceived as competent is a trigger for you, and that next time you can prepare for that feeling by mentally rehearsing a calm, reasoned response to criticism. This entire process takes just a few minutes, but its cumulative effect over weeks and months is transformative. It builds an ever-deepening self-awareness and turns your entire life into a continuous classroom. Tonight, before you sleep, I encourage you to try this Stoic ritual. You don't need a special journal or a perfect quiet space. Simply find a moment, perhaps as you're lying in bed, and walk yourself through those 3 questions. Be honest, be kind, and be specific. This small act is one of the most powerful investments you can make in your own growth, ensuring that you end each day not with mindless scrolling, but with purposeful reflection, and that you greet each new morning a little wiser than the day before. Every obstacle is an opportunity to practice unshakable presence. This is the radical shift in perspective that lies at the very heart of Stoic resilience, the art of not just enduring hardship, but of actively transforming it into the very fuel for your growth. The Stoics didn't see challenges as random misfortunes or unfair punishments. They viewed them as the essential training equipment provided by life itself, designed specifically to strengthen your character, deepen your awareness, and forge a presence that can remain calm and effective under any pressure. It's the philosophical equivalent of alchemy, turning the base metal of difficulty into the gold of wisdom and inner strength. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political intrigue, betrayal, and the burdens of leading an empire through war and plague, penned the definitive statement on this principle. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is far more than a catchy phrase. It's a precise operating manual for the mind. He is instructing us that the obstacle itself is not a detour from our path. It is the path. The thing blocking your progress is not a sign to give up, but the very raw material you are meant to use to build your solution. A wall isn't just a wall. It's an opportunity to practice climbing, to find a gate, or to build a ladder. The obstacle defines the new, more creative action you must take. Your response to the barrier is where your progress is actually made. Consider the story of a historical figure like Nelson Mandela. His 27 years of imprisonment could have been a period of utter bitterness and defeat, a massive obstacle that ended his fight for justice. Instead, Mandela and his comrades treated Robben Island as a university. The obstacle of captivity became the way. It was where they honed their arguments, educated a new generation of activists, and built an unbreakable solidarity. The harsh conditions didn't weaken their resolve, they refined it. The impediment of prison walls advanced their action by forcing a strategy of relentless, patient, and intellectual resistance that ultimately proved far more powerful than any immediate, violent action could have been. Mandela emerged not broken, but with a profound, unshakable presence that would guide a nation through reconciliation. This principle is just as powerful in the context of our daily lives, though the obstacles are often more personal. Imagine you are working on a critical project and your computer crashes, causing you to lose hours of work. The initial reaction is pure frustration, a surge of anger, and a sense of defeated hopelessness. This is the first untrained impression. The Stoic practice is to insert that pause, to recall that the impediment advances the action. This crash is now the way. How it forces you to reconstruct your work from memory, which often leads to a clearer, more concise, and better organized version. It highlights the critical importance of a backup system, teaching you a lesson in preparedness that will save you from a far greater catastrophe in the future. The obstacle becomes a masterclass in efficiency and resilience that you would have never signed up for voluntarily, but from which you emerge as a more capable and prudent professional. Your current challenge, whatever it may be, holds the same potential. It is not a barrier to your growth, it is the very occasion for it. The difficult colleague isn't just an annoyance, they are your personal trainer for patience and effective communication. The financial setback isn't just a loss, It's a practical lesson in distinguishing wants from needs and building a more resilient foundation. The health scare isn't just a fear, it's an urgent invitation to practice courage and to reprioritize what truly matters in your life. Every single one of these situations is asking you a question. Will you see me as a stop sign or as a signpost pointing toward a new strength you need to develop? Take a moment to look at a current obstacle in your own life with this transformative lens. What is one difficulty you are facing right now? A strained relationship, a professional rejection, a personal fear. Now consciously reframe it. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How can this happening for me? What specific muscle of resilience is this situation asking me to build?" Is it patience, courage, creativity, detachment? Identify the virtue and then lean into the practice. The obstacle hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has undergone a complete revolution. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a student in the gym of life, and the weight you once cursed is now the very thing you are grateful for, because you know it is making you stronger. What if remembering death could make you more alive and present? This is the powerful paradox at the heart of the Stoic practice known as Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die." Far from being a morbid or depressing fixation, this was a profound exercise in clarity and priority setting for the Stoics. It serves as the ultimate tool for cutting through the noise of trivial concerns, social posturing, and endless procrastination to reveal what is truly essential in your life. By keeping the finite nature of our existence consciously in mind, we are jolted out of complacency and into a state of vibrant, purposeful engagement with the present moment. It is the final guarantor of an unshakable presence, because when you are fully aware that your time is limited and precious, you stop wasting it on things that do not truly matter. Seneca, who wrote extensively about the value of time, captured this idea with piercing clarity. He advised, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." This is the core of the practice. It is not about living in fear of an end, but about living with the profound appreciation that comes from knowing that every day, every hour, is a non-renewable resource. When you internalize this, your perspective shifts dramatically. The minor irritations that once consumed your mental energy, the slow-moving line at the coffee shop, a negative comment online, a petty disagreement, lose their power to agitate you. They are exposed as the inconsequential distractions they are when held against the backdrop of life's grand, fleeting tapestry. Integrating this into your daily routine doesn't require dwelling on grim imagery. It can be as simple as a momentary pause during your morning ritual. As you sip your coffee, you might take one conscious breath to acknowledge, "This day is a gift I have not been promised." This isn't meant to induce anxiety, but to instill a deep sense of gratitude and focus. It's the mental equivalent of an artist looking at a finite canvas, knowing there is only so much space for his deliberate, meaningful strokes. You begin to ask better questions throughout your day. Is this activity worthy of my limited time? Am I engaging with the people I love in a way that reflects how I truly feel about them? Does this project align with my deepest values, or am I doing it out of habit or a desire for external validation? Memento Mori acts as a filter, ensuring that your actions and attention are poured only into what is truly significant. To make this tangible, consider how this practice would transform an ordinary Tuesday. Without this awareness, the day might slip away in a blur of half-finished tasks, distracted scrolling, and surface-level interactions. You might put off a meaningful conversation, delay working on a personal passion project, or snap at a family member over something trivial. But with a gentle reminder of life's brevity in the back of your mind, that same Tuesday becomes charged with purpose. You choose to call your parents just to hear their voices. You dedicate an uninterrupted hour to that book you've been meaning to write. You listen more intently to your partner's story instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. You find joy in the simple sensation of the sun on your face during a walk, because you are truly there to feel it. The reminder of death doesn't overshadow life, it illuminates it, making every color brighter and every moment more vivid. Now bring this directly into your own life with a single, powerful question. If you were to receive a certain diagnosis today, if you knew for a fact that this was your last day, what would you immediately stop doing? And more importantly, what would you passionately start? The first part of the question reveals the trivialities and obligations you've been tolerating that are utterly out of alignment with your core self. The second part reveals the suppressed dreams, the unexpressed love, and the authentic connections you've been postponing for a someday that is not guaranteed. You don't need a dramatic diagnosis to start living the answers. The practice of Memento Mori gives you permission to make those changes now, to shed what is unimportant and embrace what is essential, so that when your final day does arrive, whenever that may be, you can look back not on a life of regret and delay, but on a life lived with intention, love, and unwavering presence. Presence isn't passive, it's shown in purposeful action. Up to this point, we've explored many internal Stoic practices, how we judge events, how we manage our desires, how we reflect on our days. But Stoicism was never intended to be a philosophy of withdrawal or quiet contemplation alone. It is a philosophy of engagement, a call to move through the world with deliberate, virtuous action. The Stoics believed that wisdom without action is incomplete. True inner peace is not found in isolation, but is expressed and reinforced through our conduct in everyday life. This is the discipline of action, the commitment to do what is right, not for applause, not for reward, but simply because it is right and because our shared humanity requires it. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this duty to engaged, mindful action. He wrote, "Don't go on discussing what a good person should be, just be one." And in another passage, he instructs himself to do what is in front of you with precise and genuine intention. This phrase is a perfect summary of the Stoic approach. Precise action means acting with focus and skill, not carelessly or half-heartedly. Genuine intention means your motive is pure, aligned with virtue and the common good, not with self-interest or the hope of recognition. Your action is its own reward. The act of doing good is the good itself. This transforms even the most mundane task into a meaningful practice. You aren't just taking out the trash, you are contributing to the order and cleanliness of your shared home. You aren't just completing a report, you are fulfilling your duty with excellence and supporting your team. The external action may look the same, but the internal intention, and therefore the quality of your presence within that action, is utterly different. This discipline shines brightest in small, daily acts that often go unnoticed. Imagine you're in a hurry at the grocery store and you see an elderly person struggling to reach an item on a high shelf. The easy, automatic action is to pretend you didn't see them and rush on with your day. The Stoic, practicing purposeful action, will pause. They recognize this moment not as an interruption, but as the very thing they are there to do. They offer help not because they expect a thank you or want to feel like a hero, but because it is a simple act of kindness and community. It is the right thing to do. Afterward, they continue with their day, having strengthened their character through that small, precise action. Another example, you notice a piece of litter on a park path. You could walk past it thinking it's not your job or that one piece doesn't matter, but acting with virtue means picking it up and disposing of it properly. You are acting for the common good, for the beauty of the shared space, and for your own integrity. You are taking responsibility for your corner of the world. These seemingly insignificant actions are the repetitions that build the muscle of moral character. They are how we practice for the bigger moments. The person who consistently acts with small integrities is the same person who will find the courage to act with great integrity when it truly counts. To tell a difficult truth, to stand up for someone who is vulnerable, to make a hard decision because it is right, not because it is easy. This practice ensures that your inner stillness, cultivated through all the other disciplines, doesn't become indifference. Instead, it becomes a calm, powerful engine for good in the world. Your unshakable presence is not for you alone. It is the foundation from which you can reliably and effectively serve others. So, let's make this practical and immediate. Look at the rest of your day ahead. Where is one specific, concrete opportunity for you to exercise this discipline of action? It doesn't need to be grand. Perhaps it's performing a household chore without resentment, but with the genuine intention of creating a pleasant environment for your family. Maybe it's sending a message of appreciation to a colleague, not for any strategic gain, but simply to acknowledge their good work. It could be choosing to listen fully to someone without interrupting, even if you're tired or disagree, offering them the gift of your complete attention. Identify that one action and commit to performing it not as an item on a checklist, but with precise and genuine intention as your practice for today. This is how philosophy moves from the pages of a book into the motion of your life. How presence becomes not just a state of mind, but a force for good in the world. Within you is a place of absolute peace. Stoics called it the inner citadel. This isn't a physical location or a mystical concept. It is the ultimate mental fortress, a sanctuary of reason and clarity that you can learn to access at any moment, regardless of the chaos unfolding around you. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless wars, plagues, and betrayals, constantly returned to this idea as his source of strength. He wrote, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the coast, or in the hills. There is nowhere that a person can find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own mind. So constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourself." He is describing the core mechanic of unshakable presence, the ability to instantly withdraw from the external storm and find shelter within the unassailable walls of your own judgment. Building this inner citadel is the culmination of all the Stoic practices we've explored. It's where the dichotomy of control, cognitive detachment, and rational judgment converge to form an impenetrable stronghold. When your sense of self and your peace of mind are rooted in this internal fortress, no outside event, no criticism, no failure, no loss, no stress can truly disturb your core. The shouts of an angry boss, the panic of a financial market, the disappointment of a rejected proposal, these things happen outside the walls. They may be loud and alarming, but they cannot breach your inner gates unless you personally lower the drawbridge and grant them entry. Your inner citadel is governed by reason, and its primary defense is your unwavering choice to only value what is truly within your power, your own character, and your voluntary actions. Imagine a high-stress situation that would typically send your heart racing and your mind spiraling. You're about to give a major presentation to a skeptical audience, and just minutes before you begin, you discover a critical error in your key data. The initial wave of panic is intense. Your palms sweat, your stomach clenches, and your thoughts scream about impending humiliation and professional ruin. This is the precise moment to practice retreating into your inner citadel. Instead of letting the panic take the helm, you take one conscious breath and make the deliberate choice to withdraw. In your mind's eye, you see yourself stepping back from the chaos of the conference room and into a quiet, fortified space within. From this place of calm, you can assess the situation with reason. The error is a fact. It is outside your control now. What is within your control? You can choose to acknowledge the mistake openly and transparently at the start of your talk, demonstrating integrity. You can focus on the strength of your overall argument rather than the one weak point. You can decide that your worth is not determined by this single presentation, but by your honest effort and your ability to handle adversity with grace. By accessing your citadel, you transform a potential disaster into a demonstration of character. This sanctuary isn't built in a day. It is constructed brick by brick through daily practice. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you question a rash judgment, every time you align a desire with virtue, you are adding another layer of stone to your walls. The goal is to make this retreat so familiar that it becomes your default response to pressure, an inner reflex of calm. To start this construction project, take a few moments right now to visualize your own inner citadel. What does it look like? Is it a serene library filled with wisdom, a simple, quiet room, a windswept cliff face overlooking a calm sea? There is no wrong answer. Its form is unique to you. The key is that it is a place where you feel completely safe, grounded, and in command of your faculties. Now, think of a minor irritation you might face later today, a long queue, a frustrating email, a noisy environment. Make a plan to use that moment as a drill. When it happens, consciously take a mental step back into your citadel. Observe the irritation from that place of quiet strength. See it for the small, external thing it is, and choose your response from there. This is how you move the concept of peace from a philosophy in your mind to a lived reality in your life, ensuring that no matter what the world throws at you, you always have a place of absolute peace to which you can return. Can you care deeply for someone in pain without being consumed by their suffering? This delicate balance between compassion and composure is where Stoic empathy truly shines, a practice that allows you to offer genuine support without sacrificing your own inner stability. The Stoics were not unfeeling robots. They advocated for deep engagement with the struggles of others, but with a crucial distinction. They believed we must learn to extend a helping hand without allowing ourselves to be pulled into the emotional vortex. This isn't about building walls around your heart. It's about developing the emotional intelligence to be a calm, steady presence in the storm rather than another casualty of it. Epictetus, who himself experienced the profound helplessness of slavery, provided perhaps the clearest guidance on this practice. He advised, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" While this directly addresses criticism, the underlying principle applies to empathy. Don't internalize the emotional state of others as your own. In his teachings on helping those in distress, he emphasized the importance of offering rational support and clear-minded comfort, rather than simply mirroring their despair. He cautioned against adopting the distress of others, explaining that two people drowning are of no help to each other. His point was that to be truly useful, you must keep your own head above water. Your calm isn't a lack of care, it's the very resource that makes your care effective. Consider the role of a caregiver for a loved one with a chronic illness. The untrained empath might fall into a pattern of shared despair, spending every waking moment steeped in the same anxiety and sadness as the patient. While this might feel like deep solidarity, it quickly leads to emotional burnout, leaving both individuals exhausted and without a source of strength. The Stoic approach, by contrast, would involve fully acknowledging the difficulty of the situation and offering practical, compassionate help, managing medications, providing comfort, listening deeply, all while consciously maintaining an inner reserve of calm and perspective. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means understanding that your loved one needs you to be the stable ground they can lean on, not another person falling down with them. You can sit with them in their pain without making their pain your entire reality. Your steady presence becomes a sanctuary for them, a reminder that peace is still possible even in the midst of suffering. This balanced empathy is a skill that requires conscious practice, especially in a world that often equates caring with co-suffering. It begins with the fundamental Stoic reminder of the dichotomy of control. You can control your efforts to help and support, but you cannot control another person's experience or choices. You are responsible for offering your best help, not for fixing their pain. This shift liberates you from the burden of needing to save someone, which is often an impossible task that leads to frustration and resentment on both sides. Instead, you focus on what is within your power, your patience, your listening ear, your practical assistance, and your unwavering presence. You learn to discern when to sit in silent solidarity and when to offer a gentle, rational perspective that might help them see their situation differently. Reflect for a moment on your own patterns of support. Where in your life do you find yourself becoming overwhelmed by the emotions of those you care about? It might be with a friend going through a divorce, a colleague stressed about a project, or even absorbing the anxiety of the daily news cycle. How can you begin to practice holding space for their struggle without taking ownership of it? The next time you offer support, make a conscious effort to monitor your own emotional state. Are your shoulders tightening with their stress? Is your breath becoming shallow with their anxiety? When you notice this happening, take a moment to ground yourself, a deep breath, a mental reminder of your own center. This small act of self-awareness allows you to reset and return to them as a clearer, more stable source of strength. True Stoic empathy means understanding that the most compassionate thing you can often offer another person is not your worry, but your peace. Unshakable presence grows when you realize you already have enough. This profound shift from a mindset of scarcity to one of sufficiency is not about settling for less. It's about redefining what enough truly means, liberating yourself from the endless treadmill of desire that constantly pulls you out of the present moment. The Stoics identified this craving for more money, more status, more comfort, as a primary source of inner turmoil, a constant hunger that can never be satisfied because it misidentifies the source of fulfillment. They argued that genuine wealth and contentment are not found in the accumulation of possessions or achievements, but in the systematic limitation of our desires to align with what is truly necessary and within our control. This is the art of wanting what you already have. Seneca, a man who experienced both immense wealth and profound loss, cut to the heart of this idea with stunning clarity. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This redefinition of poverty is a revolutionary act. True poverty, in the Stoic sense, is not a material condition but a state of mind, an internal sense of lack that no external object can ever fill. A billionaire who constantly worries about losing his fortune or craves an even greater sum is, by this definition, poorer than a street vendor who feels genuine gratitude for his daily meal and the simplicity of his life. Wealth, then, becomes a function of your needs, not your assets. It is the realization that your peace and happiness are not contingent on acquiring the next thing, but on fully appreciating the things you already possess, most of which are fundamental, simple, and often free. Your health, your capacity for reason, your relationships, the air in your lungs. We can see a powerful modern reflection of this Stoic principle in the movement towards minimalism and intentional living. Minimalism isn't just an aesthetic of empty rooms and sparse decor. At its best, it is a practical application of Stoic contentment. It is the conscious process of identifying the essential, what truly adds value to your life, and eliminating the excess that merely creates clutter, distraction, and obligation. Every item we own demands a sliver of our attention. It must be cleaned, stored, maintained, insured, and eventually replaced. The same is true for our digital lives. Every subscription, every app notification, every commitment on our calendar pulls at our focus. By simplifying our physical and digital environments, we are not practicing deprivation. We are conducting a mass clearing of the external noise that competes for our presence. We are creating space, both literally and mentally, to breathe, to think, and to engage deeply with the few things that truly matter. This practice extends far beyond our possessions into our ambitions and social lives. The art of contentment with enough might mean consciously deciding that your current position, while perhaps not your ultimate dream job, provides a sufficient income and valuable challenges, allowing you to focus your energy on mastering your craft rather than constantly networking for the next promotion. It could mean being fully present at a simple dinner with close friends instead of feeling FOMO about the glamorous party you weren't invited to across town. It's about deriving deep satisfaction from the completed chapter of a book you're writing, rather than anxiously fixating on its future publication and reception. In each case, you are drawing a circle around your present reality and declaring it sufficient, choosing to find richness in the depth of your engagement rather than in the constant pursuit of the next horizon. To weave this philosophy into the fabric of your day, choose one specific area of your life where the craving for more or better subtly erodes your peace. It might be the 30 minutes you spend scrolling through social media, unconsciously comparing your life to the highlight reels of others and fostering a sense of lack. It could be your wardrobe, which is full of clothes yet somehow always seems to lack the perfect outfit, leading to daily minor frustrations. Or perhaps it's your diet, where the pursuit of a perfect, Instagram-worthy meal prevents you from truly savoring the simple, nourishing food on your plate. Identify that one area and make a conscious commitment to practice contentment within it. For 1 week, declare your current wardrobe enough and practice gratitude for the functionality and comfort of the clothes you own. Or commit to eating one meal a day with your full attention, appreciating each bite without distraction, truly tasting the food and acknowledging it as sufficient nourishment. This small, deliberate act of drawing a line and saying this is enough is a powerful repetition in training your mind to find its home in the abundant present, rather than in the elusive future. Multitasking divides your presence, single-tasking strengthens it. In our modern world, we often wear our ability to juggle multiple things at once as a badge of honor, but the Stoics would see this not as a strength, but as a fundamental fragmentation of the mind. They understood that a scattered attention is a weakened attention, and that true depth, clarity, and calm can only be found in the focused application of our faculties to one thing at a time. This practice of single-tasking, or what we might call unitasking, is far more than a productivity hack. It is a profound form of Stoic mindfulness, a direct training ground for the unwavering presence we've been exploring. Marcus Aurelius, amidst the endless demands of ruling an empire, constantly reminded himself of this necessity. He wrote, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice." The key phrase here is what's in front of you, not the 10 things on your to-do list, not the email you just received, not the meeting you have later. just the one thing your hands and mind are engaged in right now. He is instructing us to pour the full force of our being into the present task, to treat it not as a trivial step to rush through, but as the entire point of our existence in that moment. This is how we cultivate what the Stoics called arete excellence of character, because excellence cannot be achieved when our mind is fractured across a dozen different fronts. Consider the stark contrast in your own experience. When you attempt to write a report while intermittently checking your phone and listening to a podcast, your presence is divided. Each switch between tasks comes with a cognitive cost, a tiny lag as your brain reorients itself, leading to a state of continuous partial attention. You are everywhere and nowhere at once, feeling busy but ultimately producing shallow work and accumulating low-grade stress. Now, imagine applying single tasking to that same report. You close all other tabs, you silence notifications, and you commit to the document for a predetermined block of time. Your entire world narrows to the flow of ideas from your mind to the screen. You enter a state of deep focus where time seems to dissolve, and the quality of your work soars. This is the Stoic ideal in action. Your judgment is fully engaged, your action is precise, and your will is aligned with the task. The activity itself becomes a meditation, a practice in unwavering presence. This discipline extends beautifully beyond work into the very fabric of our daily interactions. How often are you truly present in a conversation? It's common to be physically with someone while mentally rehearsing what you're going to say next, or thinking about a problem at work, or even just zoning out. Single tasking in conversation means offering the person in front of you the gift of your undivided attention. You listen not to reply, but to understand. You watch their expressions, you hear the tone of their voice, and you are fully there with them. This simple act is one of the most powerful expressions of respect and care you can offer, and it transforms the quality of your relationships. Similarly, apply this to a daily chore like washing dishes. Instead of rushing through it as a hated obligation, treat it as your practice. Feel the warmth of the water on your skin. Notice the texture of the bubbles. Focus on the circular motion of your hand. This mundane task is suddenly infused with a quiet mindfulness that grounds you firmly in the now. The beauty of this practice is its immediate accessibility. You don't need to overhaul your entire life to begin. Today, choose just one activity that you would normally do on autopilot or while distracted, and perform it with your complete and total attention. It could be drinking your morning coffee without looking at a screen, taking a walk without headphones, reading a book for 20 minutes without checking your phone, or even just tying your shoes with deliberate focus. Whatever you choose, commit to it fully. When your mind inevitably wanders, as it is trained to do, gently and without judgment, guide it back to the singular sensation of the task at hand. This is not about achieving perfection, but about completing the repetition. Each time you reel your attention back from distraction, you are strengthening your mental muscle, building the focus that will allow you to remain the calm, steady author of your life, no matter how many distractions the world throws your way. What if saying no to yourself could make you more free and present? This is the powerful, counterintuitive promise at the heart of the Stoic practice of voluntary self-denial. At first glance, denying yourself a pleasure seems like an act of deprivation, a reduction of your freedom to enjoy life's comforts. But the Stoics, particularly Epictetus, saw it as the exact opposite. They understood that true freedom isn't the ability to indulge every passing whim. It's the power to choose not to. Every time you succumb to a craving or a distraction simply because it arises, you are not exercising freedom. You are obeying a command. You become a servant to your desires. The practice of periodically saying no is how you fire that master and reclaim your sovereignty. It is the training that proves to yourself through direct experience that you are in charge. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and understood the meaning of external constraint better than most, placed immense value on this internal liberation. He taught his students, abstain from seeking to have everything that happens as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it actually does, and your life will be serene. This wish for things to be as they are extends to your own impulses. He wasn't advocating for a life of extreme austerity, but for a strategic, temporary practice of going without. Why? Because, as he explains, he who is not happy with little is happy with nothing. The goal of this practice is to break the hypnotic hold that external comforts have over our sense of well-being. By willingly experiencing the minor discomfort of going without, you systematically dismantle the belief that your peace requires any specific condition. You discover that you can be perfectly content, even joyful, without the thing you thought was essential. The modern applications of this are everywhere, and they are incredibly accessible. It doesn't require moving into a barrel like the famous Stoic Diogenes. It's about choosing a slightly harder path in small, deliberate ways. For instance, you might decide to abstain from all social media for a full 24 hours. Notice what happens in that space. Without the constant drip of validation and distraction, you might initially feel a sense of boredom or anxiety, a restless urge to reach for your phone. This feeling is the entire point of the exercise. It is the visible symptom of your dependency. By sitting with that discomfort instead of immediately relieving it, you are building the muscle of self-control. You are learning that you can tolerate that restless feeling and that it will eventually pass, leaving you with a clearer mind and a more focused attention. Alternatively, you might choose to skip a favorite food for a day, your morning coffee, your evening dessert. This isn't about nutrition, it's about psychology. It's a small ceremony to remind yourself that you are not beholden to a flavor. You are proving that your will is stronger than your want. The profound freedom that comes from this practice isn't found in the act of denial itself, but in the space it creates. When you are no longer reflexively chasing every pleasure and avoiding every minor discomfort, a new kind of calm emerges. Your presence becomes less reactive and more intentional. You stop living on autopilot, pulled from one craving to the next, and start making conscious choices about how you spend your energy and attention. This makes you more resilient to life's inevitable involuntary hardships. The person who has practiced going without coffee is better prepared to handle a power outage that prevents them from making it. The person who has trained themselves to tolerate the boredom of being offline is less likely to feel panicked during an internet outage. You are making friends with discomfort on your own terms, so it holds no power over you when it arrives on life's terms. To make this philosophy tangible in your own life, I want you to choose one small pleasure to deny yourself temporarily. It could be as simple as skipping the sugar in your tea, taking a cold shower instead of a hot one, or leaving your phone in another room for an evening. The specific act matters far less than the intention behind it. This week, pick one and follow through. Pay close attention to the internal resistance that arises, the little voice that rationalizes why you don't need to do this or that minimizes its importance. That voice is the very dependency you are training to overcome. By consciously choosing to say no to it, even in this tiny way, you are not practicing deprivation. You are practicing a far more valuable skill, the art of being free. Patience isn't passive waiting, it's active acceptance of timing. We often think of patience as a kind of resigned sigh, a gritting of our teeth until an unpleasant period passes. But the Stoics saw it as something far more dynamic and powerful, a cultivated skill of aligning our internal rhythm with the inevitable, often inconvenient pace of the external world. It is the conscious practice of releasing our resistance to how long things take, whether it's the progress of a goal, the change in another person, or the resolution of a problem. This isn't about apathy. It's about engaging with reality as it is, not as we wish it would be, and in doing so, conserving our energy for thoughtful action rather than wasteful frustration. Seneca, who wrote extensively on the themes of time and adversity, illuminated this distinction beautifully. He observed, "There is no person so severely punished as those who subject themselves to the whip of their own reason." In one sense, he is talking about the self-inflicted torture of impatience. When we rage against a delay, we are applying that whip to our own backs. But he also points the way forward, noting that endurance forged through patience can transform mere suffering into a meaningful test of character. He suggests that the wise person does not ask for a lighter load but for a stronger back, and patience is the primary exercise for building that very strength. It is the virtue that allows us to bear the weight of waiting without collapsing into anxiety or anger. Consider a mundane, universal experience, waiting in a long, slow-moving line at the grocery store. The impatient response is all too familiar. We sigh heavily, shift our weight, check our watch, and mentally curse the cashier for being too slow or the person in front of us for having too many coupons. Our body tenses, our breath becomes shallow, and we leave the store carrying not just our groceries, but a residue of stress that can sour the next hour of our day. We have taken a neutral event, the passage of time, and turned it into a personal affront. Now, imagine applying Stoic patience to the exact same scenario. You acknowledge the line is long and the wait is real, but you also recognize that these facts are outside your control. Your only domain is your response. So you actively accept the timing. You might use the minutes to observe your surroundings with curiosity, to plan your evening meal with focus, or simply to stand there and practice the art of doing nothing without agitation. You might even use it as a moment of gratitude that you have the resources to buy food, that you have the health to stand, that you have a few unplanned minutes of pause in a busy life. The external circumstance is identical, but your internal experience is utterly transformed from one of lack and frustration to one of presence and acceptance. This practice of active acceptance is what separates Stoic patience from passive endurance. It's the difference between being stuck in traffic while screaming at the cars ahead and being stuck in traffic while listening to an audiobook you enjoy. In both cases, you are not moving, but in the second, you have chosen to cooperate with the circumstance rather than fight it. You have redirected your energy from the uncontrollable, the traffic, to the controllable, your chosen focus. This is how patience builds unshakable presence. It roots you firmly in the current moment, making it impossible for external delays to derail your inner calm. You are no longer a victim of the timeline. You are a conscious participant in it. To begin weaving this skill into the fabric of your day, identify one specific situation where impatience routinely steals your peace. It might be the daily commute, the slow loading of a computer program, waiting for a response to an important text, or the gradual pace of a child getting ready for school. Tomorrow, when that situation arises, make it your deliberate practice. Don't just try to be patient. Actively accept the timing. Say to yourself, "This is how long this takes." Then consciously choose where to place your attention: on your breath, on a positive thought, on observing the details around you. This small, intentional act is a repetition in the gym of your mind, building the muscle of patience that will allow you to meet life's larger delays and difficulties not with frazzled resistance, but with grounded, unwavering presence. How does humility quiet the inner noise that disrupts presence? At its core, Humility is the quiet recognition of our own small but significant place in the vast cosmos. It's the gentle but firm understanding that we are not the center of the universe, and that our personal dramas, while deeply important to us, are just one thread in an incomprehensibly large tapestry. This isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less, the constant inner chatter that so often disrupts our peace, the worry about how we're perceived, the defensiveness when we're criticized, the need to be right or to win, is almost always fueled by the engine of ego. Humility is the practice of turning that engine off, allowing the noise to settle and revealing the quiet clarity that was there all along. It's the ultimate grounding force, tethering us to reality and freeing us from the exhausting performance of maintaining a certain self-image. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, constantly practiced this humbling perspective to maintain his equilibrium. He would remind himself, in the life of a man, his time is but a moment, his being an incessant flux, his senses a dim rushlight, his body a prey of worms, his soul an unquiet eddy, his fortune dark, his fame doubtful. This wasn't self-hatred, it was a profound exercise in cosmic perspective. By consciously reflecting on the fleeting nature of his own life, his fragile body, and the ultimate obscurity of even an emperor's fame, he was systematically deflating his own ego. He was reminding himself that his power and position were temporary, conditional, and ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things. This practice didn't make him apathetic. It made him calm, focused, and free to do his duty without the distorting pressures of pride or the fear of legacy. It allowed him to act with virtue for its own sake, not for the applause of history. We can integrate this profound humility into our own lives through simple, daily practices. Consider the act of admitting a mistake, whether in a work meeting or a personal relationship. The ego perceives this as a threat, a loss of face, a diminishment of status. It urges us to double down, to make excuses, to blame others, all to protect a fragile self-image. This internal conflict creates immense noise and tension, shattering our presence and often damaging our connections. Choosing humility in this moment is an act of liberation. To simply say, "You know, I was wrong about that," or "I don't actually know the answer," is to instantly dissolve that tension. The energy you are using to defend a false position is suddenly available to you again. You become more present, more open, and more capable of finding a real solution. You trade the brittle armor of being right for the flexible strength of being real. Another powerful practice is to actively seek to learn from others, especially those you might otherwise overlook. The ego wants to be the teacher, the expert, the one who has something to offer. Humility allows you to become the student in any situation. Ask a junior colleague for their opinion on a project and truly listen to their answer. Ask your child to explain something they understand better than you do. In these moments, you are not lowering yourself. You are expanding your understanding and connecting with the world from a place of curiosity rather than superiority. This stance naturally fosters a calm presence because you are engaged in receiving the world, not in constantly projecting your own importance onto it. You become a participant in a larger conversation, not a solo performer on a stage. Take a quiet moment to look at your own life through this lens of humble clarity. Where is one specific area where your ego's need for validation or its fear of being diminished is currently creating inner noise and disrupting your peace? Is it a simmering resentment because you feel undervalued at work? A reluctance to try something new because you're afraid of looking foolish? A tendency to dominate conversations to ensure you're seen as intelligent? Identify that one spot and make a gentle commitment to practice humility there this week. It might mean consciously ceding the floor in a discussion, or asking for help on a task you usually pretend to master, or simply accepting a compliment without feeling the need to immediately return one. Notice how this small act of releasing the ego's grip doesn't make you smaller, but actually makes your presence larger, calmer, and far more connected to the world around you. Unshakable presence is built through daily rituals, not grand gestures. While the sweeping philosophies and dramatic historical examples of Stoicism are inspiring, the real transformation happens in the quiet, consistent moments of your everyday routine. It's the small, repeated actions that carve new neural pathways, turning abstract principles into reflexive responses. The Stoics understood that character is not forged in a single moment of crisis, but in the thousands of mundane choices that prepare you for it. This is about moving from simply understanding Stoic ideas to living them, embedding them so deeply into the fabric of your day that they become your default setting for engaging with the world. Epictetus, focusing on the tangible mechanics of progress, emphasized this incremental approach. He taught that improvement comes not from occasional, Herculean efforts, but from the patient accumulation of small practices. He said, "If you would be a good reader, read; if a writer, write." His point was profound in its simplicity. Proficiency in anything, especially the art of living, is the direct result of consistent daily effort. You wouldn't expect to run a marathon by training once a month. Likewise, you cannot cultivate an unshakable presence by practicing your philosophy only when life gets difficult. The daily ritual is your training ground, the place where you build the mental muscle and emotional resilience that will hold you steady when the storms inevitably arrive. Consider the power of a dedicated morning ritual. Before the world has a chance to impose its agenda upon you, you can set your own internal compass for the day. This doesn't need to be a complex or time-consuming affair. It could be as simple as spending 10 minutes with a journal, guided by a few purposeful prompts rooted in Stoic thought. You might ask yourself, what is one potential challenge I might face today, and how can I plan to meet it with virtue? What is within my complete control today, and what must I be prepared to accept regardless of my preferences? Which Stoic principle, perhaps the dichotomy of control or Amor Fati, do I want to consciously practice in my interactions? This brief period of intentional forethought is like studying the map before a journey. It doesn't prevent you from encountering traffic or detours, but it ensures you never lose sight of your destination or your chosen route. The true genius of this practice lies in its cumulative effect. Each morning's ritual is a single brick in the construction of your inner citadel. One day of reflection might help you navigate a single frustrating email with more patience. A month of mornings might transform your entire approach to workplace stress. A year of this practice could fundamentally rewire your relationship with adversity itself. The ritual itself is the small, daily effort. The unshakable presence is the compound interest it pays over a lifetime. It's about creating a non-negotiable anchor point in your day that constantly reaffirms your commitment to living by reason and virtue, making it progressively harder for external chaos to knock you off your center. Now, this is where philosophy meets the pavement of your actual life. I want you to move from passive learning to active design. Don't just think about a ritual, create one. What is one small, sustainable Stoic practice you can weave into your tomorrow? It doesn't have to be a grand, hour-long meditation. Perhaps it's writing down one thing you will practice accepting with Amor Fati. Maybe it's reciting a single line from Marcus Aurelius as you brush your teeth, using it as a mantra for the day. It could be committing to a 5-minute evening review where you ask yourself Epictetus's question: what did I do well? What needs improvement? The form is less important than the function. a consistent daily touchpoint that turns Stoic wisdom from a concept you admire into a tool you actively use. Design that one ritual for yourself tonight and make the conscious choice to begin building your presence one day at a time. How much of your energy is wasted worrying about what others think? It's a silent tax we pay on our peace of mind, a constant background hum of anxiety about our appearance, our words, our choices, and how they might be perceived by those around us. This fear of judgment is one of the most pervasive and draining obstacles to unshakable presence because it keeps us living outside of ourselves, constantly editing our actions for an invisible audience. The Stoics identified this centuries ago, and their remedy was not to try to win everyone's approval, but to perform a radical act of mental reclassification, to understand that the opinions of others belong squarely in the category of things outside our control and are therefore utterly unworthy of our emotional investment. Our only rightful concern is with our own internal virtue, the quality of our character and the integrity of our actions. Epictetus, who knew a thing or two about being judged from his time as a slave, laid down the fundamental rule for overcoming this fear. He instructed, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This is more than just a witty retort, it's a profound psychological strategy. It completely reframes the threat of criticism. Instead of seeing it as a personal attack to be defended against, you are invited to see it as irrelevant data. The critic's opinion is a reflection of their own knowledge, their own biases, their own momentary state. It is part of their internal world, not a factual statement about yours. Your power lies not in controlling their opinion, but in your sovereign indifference to it. Your task is to be concerned only with whether you are acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. If you are, then any external judgment is simply noise. Consider the common fear of public speaking, a classic scenario where the fear of judgment can be paralyzing. The untrained mind goes into the presentation fixated on the audience's reaction. Every cough, every glance at a phone, every neutral face is interpreted as a sign of failure, of being judged negatively. This external focus shatters your presence. You are no longer connected to your material or your message, but are instead trapped in a desperate, invisible plea for approval from the crowd. The Stoic approach, however, would involve a complete shift in focus beforehand. You would prepare diligently because that is within your control, the virtue of doing your work with excellence. You would then walk onto that stage with a single internal goal: to deliver your talk with clarity and sincerity, to serve the audience with the value of your ideas. The applause, the criticism, the engagement, these are externals. They are not your business. Your business is the delivery itself. This shift from needing a specific outcome to being devoted to a virtuous process is incredibly liberating. It allows you to be fully present, to connect with your material, and ironically, to deliver a far more compelling and authentic performance precisely because you are free from the need for it to be compelling. This principle extends far beyond the podium into the fabric of our daily social interactions. How often do you choose your clothes based on what will draw praise or avoid ridicule? How often do you hesitate to voice a unique opinion in a group discussion for fear of standing out? How much mental real estate is occupied after a social event, replaying conversations and worrying about how you were perceived? Each of these moments is a small leak of your vital energy, a subtraction from your presence in the world. The practice of indifference to opinion is the act of plugging those leaks. It's not about becoming callous or antisocial. It's about transferring the source of your validation from outside to inside. you learn to approve of yourself based on your own values, making you immune to the fickle and often contradictory opinions of others. Your calm becomes self-generated, and your presence becomes grounded in the unshakable foundation of your own self-respect. To integrate this liberating practice, look closely at your own life and identify one specific arena where the fear of judgment currently holds sway over you. Is it in sharing your creative work, in stating your needs in a relationship, in wearing what you truly like without concern for trends? Or perhaps it's in simply staying quiet when you have nothing to add, instead of feeling pressured to speak just to be seen participating. Choose that one area and make it your training ground for the next week. Before you act, ask yourself the Stoic question: is this action being guided by my internal virtue and values, or by my desire for external validation? Then act from the former. Each time you do, you are reclaiming a piece of your energy and reinforcing the only opinion that has any real power over your peace, your own. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, having journeyed through the core mechanisms that forge an unshakable presence. It begins with the fundamental wisdom of the dichotomy of control, that crucial act of sorting the world into what is within your power and what is not, conserving your precious energy for the only arena where you are truly sovereign, your own mind and your chosen actions. From there, we build the pause of cognitive detachment, that vital space between an event and your reaction where your freedom resides, allowing you to respond with reason instead of replying with raw impulse. We then learn to love our fate with Amor, Fati, embracing every obstacle not as a setback but as the very material we are meant to use to build our resilience and strength. And finally, we ground it all in daily practice in the evening reflections, the voluntary discomfort, the mindful prosoche, because philosophy without action is merely entertainment. These are not just abstract ideas, they are a trainable system, a repeatable process for building a mind that cannot be shaken by the chaos of the external world. This strength is not reserved for ancient philosophers or modern-day sages. It is available to anyone willing to put in the consistent, quiet work of exercising their character. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in the midst of immense pressure, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is your birthright, waiting to be unlocked not by a single grand gesture, but by the accumulation of small, daily choices. The path forward is simple, though not always easy. Do not feel you must master everything at once. Start small. Choose just one practice from this video that resonated with you. Perhaps it is the evening review of your day, or the decision to take a cold shower tomorrow morning, or simply the commitment to pause and ask, is this within my control? The next time you feel a surge of stress, weave that single thread into the fabric of your day, and from that small beginning, an unshakable presence will gradually, steadily begin to grow. If you found this journey valuable, consider subscribing to the channel for more insights into applying ancient Stoic wisdom to modern life. This is not a path we walk alone. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Share which practice you plan to start with, or an experience where a Stoic principle has already helped you find your center. By sharing our stories, we build a community dedicated to living with more purpose, more resilience, and more peace. Thank you